How did we get here? On September 15th, 2020, a great number of women took over the federal building of Human Rights Commission in New Mexico. These women were angry. Several made speeches regarding someone they had lost to gruesome murders, homicides, killings, rapes, husbands, sisters, daughters. But it was not a usual commemoration. They were united on one thing: the inaction and extreme indifference the state authorities have depicted towards the justice system. These protests sparked multiple protests all over the country. In Tijuana and Guanajuato, Ecatepec, Cancun, followed up by women taking over the human rights buildings in all those cities. Women hung posters of the victims. They lighted candles. They gave speeches. No male journalist was allowed. They damaged monuments and abused the government using spray painting on walls and on streets. These protests were radical in some places and peaceful in others. However, the police, along with the National Guard, used brute force, tear gas, and beating to disperse the protesters. The protesters comprised of old women, children, pregnant women, and students. 2 reporters were wounded badly, 5 journalists were beaten, people were shot in the legs, and there are allegations that young women were sexually assaulted as they were being arrested. What sparked this? Was it Ingrid Escamilla, a young girl of 25, who was mutilated and skinned on February 9th by her partner? Or was it Fatima Cecilia, a young girl of age 7, who was kidnapped and brutally murdered 2 days later? Or was it Bianca Alexis, a teacher, 20 years old? Or Marbella Valdez, another 20-year-old, whose bodies were found wrapped in plastic? Fabiola Juarez, cause of death, gunshots. Lorenzana Alvarado, cause of death, torture. Or was it that homeless woman who was assaulted by 2 policemen? Or was it because of the woman who, following the disappearance of her niece and sister, brought in the paperwork, sat there for hours, and the authorities never responded? Or was it because of the daughter of a young woman who was murdered right in front of her by her partner, and the partner is still running free? Or was it because of a 20-year-old lawyer who was sexually assaulted and murdered right after she attended a birthday party? And yet, the suspected perpetrators, her partner, his friend, actually in person attended her own funeral. Yes. Mexican women are not safe, period. There are many factors responsible for this. Women generally are not safe anywhere, but in case of Mexico, it is taking a new turn. 1,006 of the 3,285 murders of women last year were femicides. The women are not simply murdered. Extreme tactical force, torture, and mutilation of the corpse follows. They are killed and covered up, something similar to the cancerous cartel culture in Mexico. According to the data gathered by Maria Salguero in Quintana Roo, 63% of femicides are linked to organized crimes. The widespread nature of the use of torture is specific to Mexico. It is being wondered that the cartel culture has seeped into the everyday consciousness of the people. Since more than 44% of women were murdered by their partners, it is probable that a normal family member can even begin to think of dismembering a human body and then skinning it. It can be attributed to two reasons as described by National Geographic Project with Hippolytina. The media coverage glorifies necroviolence in films, music, and television. These clips that you are watching are from the hashtag cartel TikTok. This features the lavish lifestyles of drug bosses and their families. These clips including gun violence, real boat chases, and law breaking is live streamed every single day, and they have access through social media to every Mexican household, to every kid's phone, and that's how they glorify this lifestyle of anarchy. Is there any judicial accountability? No. Complete with the stacks of money, boat chases, piles of drugs, jewel-encrusted assault weapons, designer clothes, foreign cars, exotic animals. It has taken more than 50 years for this culture to peak to a point that more than half the Mexicans fear getting out of homes and never coming back. Not only this, tabloids, newspapers, and blogs routinely run uncensored images of decapitated corpses and piles of bloody body parts in the street. Articles and YouTube videos that touch upon the topic of violence against women are flooded with comments about why she deserved it. Bottom line, women are treated as perpetrators. Political and social issues have normalized torturing against women on a massive scale. Forms of killing, strangulation, drowning, suffocation, you name it. What are considered the reasons for these killings? Inhumanity, criminal instinct, doxing, grooming, revenge porn? All these lay the basis for femicides. For organized crimes, being partner of a drug dealer also has led to women either getting killed by them or being avenged by his drug rivals in case he has gone missing. These women are not just there raising voice against rising number of femicides or the brutality and meticulous torture techniques employed by cartels. They are fired up against the inaction and extreme indifference the current government has shown towards this cause. There are huge gaps in legislation to cover for a huge number of murders coming under the label of femicide, considering only 15 out of 33 Mexican states even have the word femicide recognized by the law. There is absolutely no institutional policy for all stages of criminal proceedings for gender-based violence. Even reported cases are re-victimized by the police in sex or necro killings. Ley Olimpia, the law against cyber violence perpetrated against sex, has not been properly implemented. There is always unjustified delays, lack of essential forensic testing, victim blaming, as well as interference in their private lives. During prosecution, women face gender bias from judges who generally focus on women's inferiority or lack of credibility. But besides the huge holes and patriarchal mindset practiced by the legislation, there is an alarming indifference showed by the president towards these women. He defamed these protests following these horrific murders by calling it a political ruse tried by the conservatives to demean his government. Despite the meanness and heartlessness of the comment, the president has been cutting funding all over the state during the pandemic, but none have been abused more than the Mexican women, the indigenous women from Quintana Roo, who live in extreme situations due to prevailing poverty, close quarters, have faced the spiking rate of physical abuse under quarantine. The austerity program introduced by the president made a 75% budget cut for Federal Women's Institute. Not only has it withdrawn state funding from women's shelters run by the NGOs, its internationally lauded daycare program has also faced the horrific consequences of the austerity program. Due to austerity measures, public spending has been cut to these services, which provided low-income families access to state-subsidized childcare. With women being the primary caregivers, not having an adequate and affordable option for childcare keeps them out of jobs and reiterates stereotypes. This contributes to society's expectations of women and keeps them from providing their own incomes and forms of self-reliance and independence. If you look at the economic contribution by Mexican women, some 22 million women are active in working spaces. They make up about 40% of the total workforce, according to the Confederation of National Chambers of Commerce, Services, and Tourism in Mexico. If they all stopped working for one day, the country could see economic losses of up to $1.3 billion. Dulce Well has reported that women represent nearly 60% of Mexico's population. With over half of the population being placed at risk of violent altercations, administration must take swift action. In a country where 11 women are murdered every single day on the basis of sex, where the refuge shelters are spilling from physically abused women and have their president advise them to count to 10 under stressful situations, and where if a woman is stabbed and skinned by her partner, the newspaper clipping has the headline, "Cupid's Fault." There is a serious need for international community to interfere on behalf of one sex being trampled legislatively, socially, economically, politically, and physically by the other. We support this women's cause. Despite its anarchy, we support it by all means.